Jashin asks his live-in Norwegian girlfriend, Thea, to marry him a few weeks before Christmas. As they decide to spend Christmas with her family in Norway, things start to get very chaotic. It all comes down to a car accident, but the story behind it starts 3 weeks ago on December 1st. Thea is finding it hard to get into the Christmas spirit when it's so sunny and wants to know from her mom if snow has fallen in Norway. Annelise is more interested to know about her boyfriend Josh and wants to meet him. They've started living together and almost started unpacking. But Jashin has glammed up the house for some reason. When he comes out in a Santa outfit, she cuts the call, since he wants to do something Christmas-themed for this special occasion. Thea loves Christmas, so he gets down on one knee and asks her to marry him. She's in love but starts thinking about how diabetes runs in her family and that he hasn't even met them yet. He tries to get up but she joins him on the ground. She's still shocked but he is sure she's the one for him. She says yes, but her mom calls right then, making it very awkward because she decides to ignore the call. She still invites him over for Christmas in Norway that year. On their flight, he's very excited to meet her family, but she claims there's something he needs to know first. She keeps getting interrupted, especially when there's an announcement about them about to land at Oslo airport. She claims that her family will be very excited to meet him, even if she doesn't look very confident about it. They're driving to her parents' house when she starts changing into a family sweater she is sure her mom has made for him too. He feels like he should have brought an Indian gift for them too, which starts a discussion with the driver who is interested about Jashin being from India. He has never been there, but is curious about it, and doesn't let Thea discuss what she wanted to. Annelise is very excited about her arrival and warmly welcomes her back. She mistakes the driver for her boyfriend Josh, but Thea clarifies that she's dating Jashin. Annelise seems very surprised that he's Indian but warmly welcomes Jashin. But she keeps calling him Shazam, which makes Thea uncomfortable, and she drops the engagement ring in her pocket to hide it. Jashin starts praising their beautiful home and finally feels like he's surrounded by Christmas. When she calls him James, he corrects her about his name and is sure she'll get it soon. Thea informs him about their Christmas traditions, but he makes fun of a Santa doll. When he learns Thea's dad, Ola Evgen, made it before he passed away, he doesn't have any more words. She's excited to meet their dog, Balder, who barks at Jashin. When she wonders what's wrong, Annelise clarifies that Balder tends to get aggressive around foreigners. She still wants to know if they're hungry, but the awkwardness has been too much for Thea and she insists they need to rest for the night. She shows him some childhood pictures on the stairway, and he wonders about a man in a picture she seems hesitant to talk about. Annelise brings some towels for them and Jashin thanks her, while addressing her as Mama. She doesn't think he needs to call her that, but he insists that's how they address in-laws in India. She thinks he can just call her by her name, but it seems too impersonal to him. Jashin wonders if her mom likes him, and knows Thea forgot to mention he's Indian. She doesn't think it should matter and knows if she had told her mom about the engagement earlier, she would get obsessed and Google everything about Indian traditions. Annelise has already started watching videos to understand more about Indians as she sits with the photo of her late husband. As Jashin sleeps, Thea looks at her engagement ring and feels conflicted. She claims she can't sleep because of the jet lag and discusses that she hasn't spoken to her ex, Georgian, who was outside the window since the last time she was there. Annelise thinks it hasn't been easy for him since their breakup happened in a terrible way, but Thea knows it was a long time ago and things got complicated. When Annelise mentions that her dad and her thought she would end up with Georgian, Thea changes the topic and discusses the rice pudding that needs to be prepared 2 days earlier so it settles, according to her dad. Annelise addresses Jashin as Shazam again and feels like Thea should have warned her about him being Indian. She doesn't even know if calling him Indian is offensive or not, and is stressed about the possibility of making 2 Christmas dinners since she knows their cultures are very different. Thea tries to talk to Jashin while he's asleep, about giving her mom more time before telling her about the engagement. She just wants the timing to be right and thinks it would help if she gets to know him better. She wants her mom to love him and knows they can make this the perfect Christmas. On December 22nd, Jashin seems nervous before meeting her brother, Simon, and asks for some tips. She assures him that he's a nice person and will like him. Jashin remembers that his wife, Hildegund, is apparently the more fun one. But Thea thinks she's not so fun at Christmas because she's on edge due to her mother. When Thea greets them, they're struggling to get their daughter Rania out of the car seat. They're equally surprised to learn Jashin is Indian, but he warmly offers to help Rania out of the seat since he claims to be an expert. Hildegund thinks it's exciting that he's Indian, and thinks he's very handsome, but Simon points out how huge the population is and it's very likely to run into an Indian anywhere. He also notices a strange grunt from Thea while Jashin is helping Rania out and she reveals that she's engaged. She hasn't told Annelise yet and is waiting for the perfect moment at Christmas. They think it's a bad idea, but Thea seems optimistic. She makes Jashin try a Norwegian dish by putting brown cheese on Christmas cake. He clearly doesn't like the taste but claims it's interesting and compliments Annelise. They're out in the snow paying respects to her father, but Jashin sneezes since he's allergic to the snow. They're also excited about the snowman he's working on but seem very confused when he reveals an Indian snowman. Anneliese is playing the piano when Jashin helps Hildegund with the decorations and gets confused about why they hang Norwegian flags on Christmas. Anneliese feels uncomfortable and takes Hildegund to the kitchen with her. Jashin wonders if something is wrong with them, but Thea assures him that her mother is just stressed about Christmas and will be fine soon. She also wants to make that night's dinner special by announcing their engagement. Thea smells something different and rushes to the kitchen to find Jashin cooking Indian dishes because he wants to thank her family for sharing their culture with him. He has brought all the spices with him, but Thea tries to make him understand that she doesn't want anything wrong for Christmas, and by making the dinner special, she only meant the part about their announcement. She encourages his cooking, but since it's teeny tiny Christmas, they usually do something else. In Norway, December 24th is the big day, and teeny tiny Christmas is the day before a tiny day before the big day, which seems very confusing to Jashin. Her mom is back and Hildegund seems very interested in what smells so good. Thea knows they won't like it and tries to clear all the stuff from the kitchen, but there's no time, and she decides to surprise them with his cooking instead. Thea knows this is not their usual teeny tiny Christmas dinner, but thinks they can settle for curry and tries to be excited about it. Anneliese points out how it has been a tradition to always have meatballs on Christmas, which her dad used to make, but Thea just wants them to give it a try. Simon makes a joke about their dad turning in his grave too. She still doesn't want Jashin to feel bad about how against this dinner they all are. Anneliese insists they're usually accepting people, but just not at Christmas. When Jashin thinks they have probably never tried Indian food, Simon and Hildegund seem excited to share how they love Indian food at a Chinese restaurant that also serves Norwegian dishes. Jashin surely doesn't think that qualifies as Indian food, but he doesn't say anything. They still decide to try it out, and Hildegund admits it smells great. They all try to follow Jashin's lead to understand how to eat it with their hands. Anneliese tries to eat it like a taco, but something doesn't feel right. Jashin reveals that they also have Christmas in India, which they didn't know, and explains how they usually do a countdown to Christmas, drink, eat, and set off fireworks. They think that sounds more like New Year's, but he's just glad to share his culture with them. Thea is about to make the big announcement of their engagement when they notice something is wrong with Anneliese. She's coughing and it feels like she's about to puke, but the water doesn't help, so she rushes to the kitchen. Rania also starts feeling like she needs to puke, and in all the commotion, Jashin wonders if he made the food too spicy. Thea goes to check on them and thinks they're being too dramatic, but Jashin insists they need something dairy since only water will not help with the spices. He asks if they have yogurt since they all look like they're about to choke, and finds the rice pudding. Thea and Anneliese don't want to use it yet, but Simon thinks it's an emergency and feeds it to Rania and himself. Anneliese tries it too, and they only feel better once they have had it. Jashin still thinks his dishes were mild, and even Hildegund is proud of her spice tolerance for Indian food. She lived in India for a couple of months after high school and shows him her tattoo, which she thinks means inner peace in Hindi. He tries to be polite, but he knows it actually means white girl. Hildegund is in shock since this is a permanent tattoo, but tries to assure herself that it's not too much of a bad thing. But she's still offended and leaves after commenting on how his food seemed dry. Thea knows this night was a failure and asks if they can celebrate the next day in the regular Norwegian way. It's December 23rd, or Tiny Christmas, and they're all hiking in the snow with skis. Everyone seems comfortable with it, but Jashin keeps falling. He wants to be a part of their activities, and as she helps him get back on his feet, she assures him there's a lunch place nearby. It turns out to be a fireplace where they rest to eat food when he was expecting a restaurant. Anneliese asks if they should head back to make gingerbread cookies together, but Thea asks them to go ahead, so Jashin and her can follow them slowly. They try to ski back, but Jashin falls again and is freezing in the snow. She gets an idea and decides to help him ski while she's holding him. Her father used to do this with her, and they're both encouraged when it works for them too. Anneliese wonders why they're not home yet, but doesn't want to send Simon to look for them, since he's getting comfortable on the couch. She spots Georgian outside the house and gets an idea. Thea apologizes for her family acting weird because Christmas is a lot of pressure for them, especially after her dad passed away. She feels like he held them together, and Christmas now is more of a reminder of what they lost. But she still wants them to like Jashin because she loves him, and he assures her it'll work out. Georgian reaches there since Anneliese wanted him to search for them. Thea doesn't want his help, but Jashin is excited about the ride back home, since he knows he can't ski. He asks to sit in the carriage while Thea sits behind him, and when they reach home, Jashin is grateful for his help and invites him over for a drink. Georgian thinks it might be weird since he dated Thea for 5 years, which makes it awkward for all of them since she hadn't mentioned it to Jashin. When he leaves, Jashin confirms if he's the same guy whose picture was in the stairway. They're all working on the gingerbread cookies when Thea asks her mother why she called her ex to help rescue them. Anneliese points out that he was their boy next door before he became her ex, so if she feels weird about it, that's on her. She goes away to check on Jashin, who can't figure out how to make the house. He also thinks she should have warned him about her ex living next door. Anneliese asks about his speeding, since they have to do it the next day. They wonder if Jashin will join them, and he's excited to, till he learns they're talking about ice bathing. It's December 24th, or Christmas morning in Norway, when Jashin tries to find a way out of doing the ice bath and thinks they're crazy for doing it. Georgian also joins them since they all do it on Christmas and it's a tradition. He thinks an ice bath might be too cold for Jashin, but he insists he's there for the full Norwegian Christmas experience. Georgian talks about the time Annelise and Thea forced him into ice bathing for the first time, and Jashin takes that as a challenge and jumps in despite Thea's protests. Later, they're in a church for Christmas to encourage Rania, who is in the choir and is about to sing her solo. Jashin tries to join them, but he's too loud, which Thea has a problem with. He tries to whisper the lyrics instead, but that's also very irritating for her. Georgian is heading the choir and introduces them, but Jashin sneezes right in the middle of his speech. Thea scolds him about being too loud when the choir starts singing, but he can't help it because of the cold after the ice bath. She asks him to step outside before Rania's important solo and he decides to leave. When Rania starts singing, they hear him talking very loudly with his mother outside about how the family is weird for coming to church on Christmas when they're not even Christian. Annelise asks Thea to stop him before it gets worse, and she tries to, but they have already ruined it for everyone at church. Jashin tries to apologize to Rania for ruining her solo, but everyone seems to be angry at him. On Christmas Eve, he feels like he made a mistake by getting something flashy for the Christmas party, and should have just brought his suit. Thea asks him to help her with the outfit, but when he can't do that either, he thinks it's another proof he doesn't fit in there. When she tries to reassure him, he notices she's not wearing her ring. She tries to make some excuse about it being a tradition to not wear jewelry with that outfit, but she doesn't convince herself, or him. She lets her mom fix her dress and decides to talk to Rania as she plays the piano. She apologizes for Jashin ruining her solo, but Rania knows he can't ruin anything more since it's Christmas Eve. Thea knows she has a point and rushes to Jashin to inform him that they're past all the crazy stuff leading up to Christmas. She also knows they have gone through all the challenging tasks and are just left with dinner and opening presents that night. She thinks it's great for them and feels like they can finally announce their engagement by the end of the night. Jashin feels encouraged too, especially when she walks confidently with him for the dinner and throws Georgian's photo out of their stairwell. When dinner is served, Thea feels uncomfortable again because Jashin can't figure out how to eat the bland food made from fat. When Thea explains he's having pork, Hildegund wonders if maybe he's not allowed to eat it. He clarifies that he's Hindu, and Indian Muslims are the ones who don't eat pork. Rania doesn't like the food either and isn't able to eat it, but Hildegund reminds her how her grandma has made it for her with love. Since Jashin feels lost, Thea gives him some sauce to help with the food. When he learns it's fat sauce, he hesitates again and is more reluctant to try it out. Thea decides to pour out aquavit for him, which he thinks is another fat sauce, but it turns out to be the potato booze she mentioned earlier. Encouraged by the alcohol he's sure he will need that night, Jashin downs it and continues taking more shots. He ropes in everyone to toast to something constantly, but Thea can tell he's very drunk and everyone around also feels uncomfortable. He tries to offer a drink to Annelise, but she refuses since it's Christmas. Jashin doesn't know how he'll finish the meal, so Thea decides to get a few spices for him from the kitchen. She sneaks some into his food before he takes a bite and he finally enjoys it. Annelise is glad he likes the food, but just then, Jashin gets a better look at the spices. He's offended that people in Norway have brands like Hindu and Black Boy and thinks it's very racist. Thea tries to let him know that he's drunk, and Annelise is offended he seasoned her pork with garlic powder and peri-peri. He doesn't want to disrespect her, but points out that he can't have unseasoned pork with crunchy fat without a good seasoning. Annelise calls him Shazam again and insists if he doesn't like this, they might have some curries. But Jashin is offended and almost shouts at Annelise to clarify what his name is. Thea is very mad at his behavior and drags him to the kitchen with some excuse about getting sausages. She begs him to try and fit in, but he doesn't want to be like Hildegund, who pretends to not have any personality to fit into their Norwegian Christmas cult. Thea is offended that he thinks of them as a cult, and repeats that she just wants her family to be happy for them. He doesn't understand how eating pork fat can be a tradition and feels very offended about them trying to make him eat it. She wants to discuss this later since it's Christmas Eve, but he thinks Christmas is her answer to everything. He doesn't understand how her family justifies going to church or hiding their feelings just because it's Christmas. Annelise invites them in again, because Santa is there, and they can't miss it. Jashin isn't surprised to see Georgian there as Santa. He has one last present for Thea and asks her to sit on his lap. Thea doesn't want to, but to let Rania believe Santa is real, she agrees to sit close to Santa. When Santa asks if she has been a good girl before giving her the present, Jashin finds the whole thing very weird. Thea still gestures to him to not make a scene in front of Rania. He minces his words and lets Georgian make a joke about him being upset since Santa doesn't have a gift for him. But Georgian realizes he needs to leave and makes an excuse about Rudolph waiting for him. As he tries to say something to Jashin, he gets offended and pushes him. Thea can't imagine something even worse happening as she watches Santa and Jashin fighting with each other. She tries to hide the commotion from Rania, but it's too late. They both finally crash into the tree, and Thea asks Georgian to leave immediately. Jashin thinks he should go too, but because of her and not her family. He always knew it would be difficult to fit in with her family, just like she might also face issues in India if she came there. But he knows the difference, which is that he would have her back. He doesn't feel like she has his back now since she's so obsessed with making Christmas perfect and doesn't remember him. He asks why she hasn't told her family about their engagement yet, and knows she's only waiting for the perfect moment for herself. Jashin packs up and decides to leave while the driver tries to console him about it not working out. As Thea tearfully follows traditions with her family around the Christmas tree, Jashin celebrates Christmas in his own way with the countdown in the car. Thea is now intent on getting drunk and toasts to their usual Christmas. Rania thinks Thea can't be sad on Christmas and wonders where Jashin is. She wants to know if he'll be back again, but Anneliese distracts her by telling her to see if there are more presents under the tree. Rania finds one for Thea from Jashin and gives it to her, and she thinks Jashin is very cool. Thea admits he is cool too, but reminds Rania that he beat up Santa. Rania already knows it was Georgian pretending to be Santa because he's in love with her. She also thinks Jashin ruined Rania's solo in church, but she assures Thea she wasn't into it, and was only doing it since her mom told her that her grandma wants her to do it. Hildegund still seems to be on the edge and tries to clarify what Rania said. She changes the topic to complimenting Anneliese for her outfit, and everything about what Jashin said starts making sense to her. Thea realizes how hard everyone, including her, is trying to please Anneliese. She decides to leave for the airport and doesn't care if it's Christmas Eve, because she wants to get Jashin back. She knows Anneliese was thinking her relationship with Jashin is just a phase because of how she has managed her past relationships. She also knows she has tried to make everything right for Christmas because she knows how important it is for Anneliese. She thinks she has failed miserably in her job and knows now that it shouldn't be her or Jashin's job to make Anneliese like him. In tears, she finally reveals her ring and that she's getting married to him. Simon also thinks they shouldn't have let Jashin leave on Christmas Eve, and Thea is more encouraged to go after him. She heads to the car and starts it, but gets stopped in her way when a tree falls on it. She feels very frustrated with her life and is angry when Anneliese also joins her in the car. Anneliese shares that when she started dating Georgian and they thought she might marry him, her life was perfect. She thought her daughter would live next door and their kids would come over to the house all the time. But then her husband passed away and Thea also moved out, and she got more afraid to lose her. When Thea claims she's not going anywhere, Anneliese insists she is, and reveals why she doesn't drink on the holidays. She has decided to drive them all to the airport, and Anneliese is in her top form to drive, since she's not drunk. Hildegund is finally excited about doing something romantic since they're going to the airport on Christmas Eve to get Thea's fiancé back. She's even allowed to use bad words in front of Rania since Anneliese is also suddenly okay with everything. When they find an obstacle on their way, Anneliese confidently finds a way around it and knows she can make them reach the airport on time. Thea rushes inside and finds the flight schedule before knowing which direction she needs to head in. She even drops off her shoes as Jashin waits for his flight. Right before he's about to board, she finds him and apologizes. When she claims she did it because of Christmas, he wants to leave, but she admits she screwed up and that he was right about her not having his back. She thinks she didn't tell her family about the engagement because she thought it was easier that way, but she has realized she wants something complicated instead. With the same ring he gave her, she asks if he will still marry her. He's happy but wonders how she got into the airport, and she gets tackled. They're getting arrested but are still happy to be with each other, and Jashin is wearing the same ring he gave her. 1 year later at Christmas in Norway, Jashin is sure Santa won't come there, after what happened last year. Rania brings him a gift from under the tree from Anneliese and he's excited to see it. They've all accepted his Indian culture this time in their Christmas celebrations and are glad to wear some Indian jewelry. Jashin is thrilled to finally get his own family sweater and hugs Anneliese. Simon admits how much he loved the dish Jashin suggested, but this time it was all Anneliese's idea. Right before Christmas, they've adopted a new tradition and do a countdown with Jashin. They start dancing to Indian songs in front of the tree while Georgian watches them enjoying from a distance. Anneliese had a lot of fun dancing to the music and Jashin knows if she loved that, she would love to attend their wedding in India. Anneliese is shocked because Thea forgot to mention this to her again.